Hey there, and welcome to our Cybersecurity and Brain Hacks podcast. My name is Brian Powell, and I'm the Network Systems Engineer and Certified Ethical Hacker from PCA Technology Group.
And I'm Erickson Nealens. I am with APA Solutions as the neuroscience specialist, background in everything that's brain-based and applying then that knowledge to better understand how we as people work. And certainly cybersecurity has become a really big and hot topic in the general population. And what Brian and I are going to have some fun conversations about here is that blend between the human factor and what are some things that we as humans are predisposed to doing, with the understanding that that knowledge can help to shore up maybe any missing links or weaknesses in regards to cybersecurity. So today we're going to be talking about public Wi-Fi, and likely something that we've all experienced, right? Maybe I'm at a restaurant, maybe I went out to coffee with someone, and you're like, oh, I need to Google something. You're like, I don't want to waste my data, right? I got a limited plan here. I don't want to, waste any of those precious resources. So I just hop on to my settings, search, and oh yeah, I see the title of the restaurant that I'm at, and automatically click. And Brian, it sounds like from our pre-conversation here, that might not necessarily be the safest way for me to go about that. So love to hear your take on what's happening here.
So yeah, I'm sure we all found ourselves in a situation where we needed access to the internet of some sort or another, and we just kind of naturally assumed that, hey, this place probably has a shared Wi-Fi connection that we can easily connect to and not really think too much about it. And in normal situations, that might be okay. But what we're here to talk about today is that, you really need to be cognizant of what you're doing if you connect to that public wireless, because this is a wireless that's basically open for anybody to connect to, anybody that can actually see it and things like that. And it can draw some bad actors in to try to get things and get information and maybe inject themselves into what you're doing. So an example of that is, like you said, you might be in a coffee shop, and let's say, for instance, you do open up your device and you simply search for the name, and you say, let's say you're at a Tim Hortons coffee or a Starbucks coffee shop, and you see an access point that says Starbucks coffee. So you obviously that's the one you're probably going to select. Now, if I'm a bad guy and I'm going to try to convince you into doing something that you may not even realize you're doing, I might have a device that actually allows me to mimic what the access point name is in that facility. And I'm going to try to entice you to connect to that device, because that allows me to see some of the things that you're doing as a bad actor. So how would I do that? It's pretty simple. If you see in your list there, you see Starbucks access point, and maybe I'll name the one I want you to connect to as Starbucks access point super fast. The natural tendency of the human is, oh, I want the fastest speeds possible. So it's kind of manipulating that brain side of things, as you mentioned earlier, into getting you to do something you may not want to do.
Well, it's also something, that we've done for years, right? So let's go maybe back to the early stages in which we've used technology and hooking up to the internet. And, even from your first time doing so, what's in our scripts as humans? You go and search for that access point that's not locked, right? We've all had that happen where all you see are all these different ones with the little lock symbol, and you're like, oh, I want that one, but I can't get it, right? And you start searching around for different passwords, and then you see this one that, oh, it's got the name on there, so it's passed the credibility check. I'm at this coffee shop. The coffee name is there. Okay, in my mind, that checks all the boxes of what I'm anticipating and should be there. Now I see something that's super fast. It's like, oh, I could see that. Or I could see another one being maybe dash guest, or one of these other ones that to me fits that framework. Because one of the things I think that people are always fascinated to learn is that our brains are not built like, ironically enough, the machines that we use. So these machines are going through this very algorithmic data-driven coding system, whereas our brains are trying to basically do a trial and error process using these what we call heuristics to try to make sense of the world around us. So instead of our brain going through all the different possibilities of what we could be connecting to, it says, hold on, in the past, like I'm at home, I search for the internet that I need to, I click on it, and I get access to whatever Google search or social media I want to get to. Why would that be any different than when I'm out in the general population? And so I think what you're highlighting here is that the bad guys, the people who now understand that that's how most individuals are going to work, are able to, it sounds like, maybe set up some sort of hotspot that really is coming from their personal device, yet to everyone else, the unsuspecting individual, when they now search in that public Wi-Fi environment, they now are actually connecting directly their phone and all of their apps, all of their potential passwords, all of the different things that they have secured in this device, they have now given free access to this unsuspecting individual.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly it. So it's basically it's a malicious hotspot, and it's designed to capture unsuspecting people to connect to it, and it's as simple as just going in and sitting in the corner with a laptop or a cell phone that's acting as one of these devices, and you're basically a man in the middle. So everything that you're going, that person's going out to the internet for is going through that bad actor's machine out to the internet and back and forth. So yeah, that's exactly what it is. And again, it's real simple. It's just, it's just simply adding that word fast, and people are always going to want the fastest or the best or whatever it is. If you walk into a car dealership, you could have two identical cars, the exact same make, the exact same model, everything. But if one has a logo on it that says high end or premium, and that the only difference is that premium thing, the brain is actually going to tell that person to go buy the premium one because, of course, they want the best and the baddest. So that's just it's kind of funny how you can manipulate people to do that unsuspectingly.
And right, that's how we're built. So if there's any words out there that align with what we're expecting to happen in that situation, then we're not going to think or even second guess that this is something that's out of the ordinary. So I'm wondering, let's take it from maybe the shop owner's perspective. Is there anything there that the shop owner can do to identify that this is happening, and any fail safes that they can do to try to make sure that this doesn't affect their customers?
Yeah, there is. Some of the commercial access points that businesses actually use to provide that free public Wi-Fi. They do have technologies built into them that look for what's called a rogue access point. So basically, it's looking for access points that are in the vicinity that really don't belong to that customer, and it would alert somebody inside there, either management or somebody, maybe their IT provider, that hey, there is a rogue access point here, and it looks like it's trying to mimic potentially what your network is called, or it might be conflicting with your network, because these devices, obviously, they're wireless technologies, and a lot of homes have these. So even at your home, it's very easy to kind of overlap the frequencies from one home to another without even realizing it, which would affect your distance, your connectivity and stuff like that. So there's ways of doing that from a most logical standpoint, outside of the technology piece. As a business owner, I would personally put what the access point name actually is, and say, this is the official one. That way the customer would know, hey, this is actually the one I'm supposed to connect to, not some other device that might be named something differently than that.
I see. So, and that actually speaks to the human side to it. We're naturally drawn that if there's some authority figure, we'll naturally kind of listen to what that is. And so in this situation, if the owner, or what I think is the owner's communication, is saying, here are the only Wi-Fi access points, that we promote that are accessible to us, have it listed there and what that corresponding password is, you're right, more likely than to potentially stop someone from going outside of those particular networks. What about on the customer side? What can I do to try to make sure that I'm not succumbing to one of these tactics?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things, like I mentioned at the beginning here, that you might want to be careful why you're even using public Wi-Fi in the first place. I mean, in today's day and age, unless everybody's carrying around a smartphone, and most of those data plans that come with those smartphones are probably unlimited, or at least they say they're unlimited. So I personally, if I had to use the internet outside of my home that I'm comfortable with, I would probably use my data plan on my cell phone, because that's much safer and more secure than an open public Wi-Fi. The other thing too, that on the flip side of this, a lot of people that might be listening to this will say, well, you know what, even if that business owner does post that, or even if I am kind of cognizant of what I might be connecting to or not connecting to, there's a way of getting people to connect to this rogue access point, even outside of that, without you even realizing it. And it really comes down to that on your devices, that whether it's your laptop, your cell phone, your tablet, whatever that may be, that any Wi-Fi access point that you've ever connected to, that device is actually looking for that. It's actually sending out a beacon trying to find that device. So, to maintain that list is obviously helpful, but, on the flip side, a bad person could listen for that beacon, and I can turn that device that's listening into whatever your device is looking for. So let's say, your device is looking for your office or your home access point, and it's sending those beacons out because your wireless is still turned on. That, my device will see that beacon and say, hey, I'm looking for my home access point, or I'm looking for my office access point. Well, I can actually, on the fly, change that listening device into what the device is you're looking for, and your device will actually connect to it automatically because it's a safe connection. Now, I won't have all the security stuff that goes along with all those devices at the other ends, like your home. I won't have that security key. I won't have any of that stuff. But more times than not, the phone will actually connect to that access point in an unsecured fashion because it was already remembered. And it's really one of those things where your device really won't notify you of that either. It'll just connect automatically. And you may do it without even knowing you did it because your device was looking for it. So in that case, you can just turn your wireless off on those devices, and that shuts that beacon down. But that's another way of kind of tricking people into doing things without them even implementing anything on their side.
Wow. I mean, so I'm sitting here at home right now, and I'm thinking, well, wait, what's stopping someone from driving around, the street here, and just from then picking up my particular signal? So is that necessarily the case?
That used to be called war driving, and that used to happen a lot, actually. It isn't as frequent anymore, but it still could happen. Yeah, I mean, someone could be out in front of your house parked in a car with one of these devices, and you potentially could inadvertently connect to that device if they're mimicking yours, and it could happen. So yeah, it's just something you got to be really aware of. As I mentioned, just be very, very careful what you're doing when you connect to wireless, because even in your home environment, it may sometimes there's risk involved in it. I mean, it's a wireless technology, which means it's not just contained to your home; it's contained outside, to a certain distance. But it's just unfortunate that it's used for bad behavior as well. So.
Well, and someone who's not as knowledgeable about this, I'm thinking of it from that human lens, and most individuals are not going to understand that inner workings of how it is I connect. I just care about the end result, about being able to use this as an instrument to be able to get to what I need to do and where I need to get to. And I mean, just that insight there makes me start to question it. But I'm wondering, what can I do to prevent that from happening? Are there things that I can refresh? Are there things that I can clean out? What are some suggestions that you would have to, whether I'm at home on my own personal wireless network, or out in public, things that I can do to prevent this from happening?
Yep. So on your devices, obviously when you're away from your house or you're away from your work, because those are probably the two common places you would use wireless technology as you need it. If you can just turn your wireless signal off and use your data plan at that point. Now I do have on my phone. I'm not sure if it's a feature of the phone or what, but I'm running an Android Pixel, and it actually does that for me with GPS. So it knows when I'm close to my home, it knows when I'm close to my house, and it actually activates my wireless for me when I get outside whatever that range is. I don't know how, I've really never measured it, but when I get outside of a certain range, it actually disables my wireless automatically for me. So that's one feature to have. And the other thing too is if you are frequent on wireless at multiple locations, if it's not something you always have to connect to, you can go into your wireless network list. It'll have a list in there of everything you've ever connected to, and you can just go in and clean out the ones that you don't need. That's from your house and from your work. Like I said, there is risks of that, but most of the risk is going to be that because you're already connected to your device, you're probably going to be the stronger device in that, unless you're further away. So the way wireless works, if you have two devices that are named the exact same thing, usually your device will connect to the closest one. And the fact that you're actually inside your house, it more likely will be the right device versus one that's sitting out in your front driveway or whatever outside of your device if it's trying to be the same thing.
I see.
So that's kind of how it works.
Whereas though in public, right, that's really just going to be,
you don't know, right?
You don't know, right? Because I don't know where necessarily that source is coming from, and so it's not going to know what's that source to be searching for. Okay, so being really vigilant then out, especially in public, to be on either your own personal data plan. What would you recommend if someone doesn't have this unlimited plan? Is it then to, well, I don't know. What would you recommend? Are there certain...
Well, for mobile devices, it's difficult. I'm not saying you shouldn't use public wireless, but just be very careful what you're using it for, because I like to use the terminology that, whatever you're doing on a public Wi-Fi, if you're not comfortable walking up to a complete stranger and telling that complete stranger exactly what you're doing on the internet, you probably wouldn't want to be doing that on public Wi-Fi, because that's in essence what you're really doing. If you have a laptop, on the other hand, I personally would wire in, physically with a network jack.
Okay.
I know they don't exist very much, but in hotel rooms and stuff they do. Like if you're at a hotel or whatever, they still have the jacks and things. I would much rather use a wired network than a wireless one. There's still risks with that too, but it's less than what you would have with the wired.
Great. I think the idea here being that if we can start to get people to think about these things, right? It's not natural, I think, for us to pay attention to these. And so, as we're doing more and more of these podcasts, we're bringing attention to people. We understand how people are designed to work and these mental shortcuts that we rely on. And if we can get people to think about it, pay attention to it, the likelihood is that we can start to remember some of these techniques and ways to avoid these malicious attacks, that can happen. And it sounds very much like, as we've seen in recent news, just one entry point can have a catastrophic effect to an entire organization, to a single individual. Like you said, that information I'm sharing on my computer, it's like going to a complete stranger and giving them that same information. And I don't think necessarily any of us are going to want to give bank accounts or investment accounts, information to this complete stranger. But in reality, it sounds like that's exactly what you might be doing or are doing in some of these public Wi-Fi situations. So I think that's really important for us to, as we take, away from here today. Also understand that it's very natural for us to rely on those past experiences of how we've hooked up to the internet and Wi-Fi at home is probably what we're thinking when we're out in public. But certainly the ramifications seem to be that much greater when we're out in that public setting and being aware of that. So I think the more that we understand how people work, the greater that we're able to improve our cybersecurity.
Exactly. And in today's connected society, it's definitely important to be vigilant in what you're doing outside of your constraints of your office or your home. That at least you're somewhat more protected and secured than you would be out in the public. So, I'm sure in future podcasts here we'll talk about a lot more of other tactics and tricks that they try to use, other methods as well too. So I would say, in closing, probably stay tuned. And Eric, if you have anything else to add, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think technology is not going away, right? If anything, it's going to get integrated more and more into our day-to-day worlds, and working remote and the reliance we have on Wi-Fi, the internet, our computers. So I think the idea being that just as we need to properly understand how to maybe operate a vehicle, now it's how do I operate these machines and these computers and these cell phones. And I think at the end of it, no matter what, you're still working as a human with these devices. And if I can understand how people work, I can then better understand some of these techniques to help improve my cybersecurity, either on my personal side or for the company's side. And I think that has a lot of big value add, and look forward to continuing these conversations with you, Brian, as it relates to cybersecurity and the human factor on these podcasts.
Yeah, look forward to talking some more too. So thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time.